It's finally here. It's the Maximum Networks Volkswagen Racing Cup UK, incorporating the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. It's the final rounds. I cannot wait. The cars are just about to go out and line up on the grid. On pole is the Anglesey master, Brucey Winfield, and he is in with a shot of the title. The other person leading this championship, Lewis Kent. He's at the back of the grid. Track limits and an ill-handling car. That is going to be an interesting setup on his car for this next race. Other people involved in the championship, there's a lot of them. They've qualified quite well. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait. Weather's okay. Should be good. Over to you, Andy McEwen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. Well, this is it. A little bit earlier in the year than usual, but we are at Donington Park, the traditional host venue of our championship deciders for the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy. And the first of 3 races is not that far away. The cars are out on circuit, making their way around to the grid ahead of what is going to be a thrilling day of action. 5 drivers can still win this championship with still these 3 races to go, and this is something that we've never really experienced before. Each and every year of this championship, it's always gone down to the very last meeting, but it's often been a sort of mathematical possibility that the driver in second place could still win it. This time it's a genuine no-holds-barred battle, and with over 75 points still available here today, it's going to keep us guessing, I think, right down to the final laps of race number 3 later on this afternoon. Andy McEwen then up here in the commentary box. Paul O'Neill has hot-footed it up to the comms position. And Paul, I know you're just as excited about this as I am. This is something that I really love. There's nothing quite like a finals day with a championship on the line to get the blood pumping. This is what I live for.
Oh, my word, you are so right. And it's interesting, first of all, to be here. It's very windy, isn't it? I'm noticing. The wind's definitely picked up here at Donington Park. But we interviewed, didn't we, the 5 contenders for this championship just earlier on today, and it was absolutely amazing to speak to them, because I was quite interested in what was going on in their heads, and there are some things going on in their heads that we couldn't quite eke out of them. But they're definitely all revved up. One's at the back, one's at the front, and the rest of them are kind of near the front, so this is going to be an absolute storm.
I know the phrase "you couldn't script this" gets thrown around quite a bit, but you really couldn't script this. We've got the championship leader, Lewis Kent, who arrives here at Donington Park with a 21-point advantage in the championship once the drivers' 2 lowest scores have been deducted from the season so far. 21 points is not a huge cushion, but realistically, he'd have woke up this morning thinking, right, if I have an average day, I should be okay. Qualifying, though, could not have gone worse for him. He had an issue with the car, as you were just telling us, and that led to lots of track limits infringements. That means that he starts right at the back, literally last on the grid, whilst on pole position is Bruce Winfield, 5th in the championship, with only really a mathematical chance at best of winning it. He said to me this morning, if I'm going to win this, I need to have the best day ever, and Lewis has to have a shocker. So far, that's exactly what's happening. Yeah,
I would say, you know, to be fair, I bet he turned up this morning, Bruce Winfield, and was like, well, let's just give it a go and see what happens. I'm sure there was a bit more to it than that, but he would never have thought in his wildest dreams he would be maybe on pole by a quarter of a second. So this race can be won for sure. It's not like there's a tenth or half a tenth in it. It's a quarter of a second. A long time around here, because it's only like a 1 minute 11 lap or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of time, that a quarter of a second. So he'll be thinking, I just got to win this. Listen, Lewis Kent's going to come through. Let's not beat around the bush. But how far can he come through? How many allies has he got? This is what you need to remember in a championship predicament that he's in at the back of the grid.
Yeah, because it's one thing for Lewis to come through the grid, but he's got to survive that in one piece. And it's so easy here on slightly cold tyres. You made the point, it's not that warm here today. On the opening lap, it's not inconceivable that someone could have a moment, he gets caught up in it, and bang, it's a DNF. And one of the key things that we should explain for this weekend, drop scores are now done with. You cannot drop any one of these 3 races. If you have a DNF, unfortunately, that will count towards your championship total, which is great news for us, because it means it makes the maths a little bit easier. But for the drivers, especially someone in Lewis's position, already this is a stressful weekend with an awful lot of pressure on his shoulders, and knowing that he now can't fall back on drop scores to save him, just adds to that pressure.
Massively, and you're dead right about this. They could find themselves in a massive situation. When you start at the back of the grid, well, you know what he could have actually done? Started in the pit lane.
Yeah.
The only problem would be then he would have really, really cold tyres and wouldn't be able to get the heat in them like he would be able to on a normal formation lap. So I think he's got to do what he can. He's got the car at the rear of the grid. The only problem is, Andy, and I was just thinking this, was the crane of curves, the first couple of corners here, you really have to load the rear tyres. And the rear tyres, like you've seen from the other championships that have been driving round, especially you drifting lot, flat out sideways, which has been very impressive if you're here today at Donington Park. It's been very impressive. I have got to admit that I would not want to be starting anywhere but the front, because the longer and further you go down the grid, the less chance people have got of hanging onto these big slides, because, no disrespect, the ones that are further back are the ones without championship knowledge of front-wheel drive. Tom Hibbert is new to the championship. These kind of people, if they have a big slide, they're probably going to take you out, and that is the only problem I can see. So he will just be looking at it thinking, I just need to get around the first lap and pick them off.
Exactly, because race number 2 is a partially reversed grid. The top 8 finishes from this race get reversed to form the grid for race 2, whilst the third race is then a grid based on the second fastest lap times from qualifying. So, in theory, if Lewis can get into the midfield by the end of the race, he could be sitting really pretty on the grid for that second race later on. The grid has been cleared then. We're about to get the green flag lap underway. Just to reiterate to everybody then, if you've not been following the season so far, your 5 championship contenders are Lewis Kent, number 38, Dan Kirby, number 4 in the Power Max Racing Cupra, Bradley Kent, the younger brother of Lewis, he's car number 44, Max Hart, the Irish driver, car 101, running under Maximum Motorsports umbrella, and the pole sitter, number 37, Bruce Winfield, in a DSG gearbox Cupra, which is, I think, the heaviest car on the grid, even when you factor in the balance performance and the success ballast that gets added onto these cars. That car is at a weight disadvantage, but it's still the car that qualified on pole by a quarter of a second. Winfield then on pole, Alex Morgan alongside, back again this weekend in the number 5 Cupra. Row number 2 is where we get the next of our championship rivals, and Bradley Kent really the one that could still sneak back into this, I think. Bradley arrives here 24 points off the championship lead, but he's starting third on the grid in car number 44. He's got Jack Constable for company. Jack had a real mare in qualifying earlier on, which we'll get to in a bit more detail in a moment. Then on row 3 we find another title contender, Max Hart, the 101 car. He is laden with success ballast though after some really quick pace at Anglesey last time. Hugo Cook, the youngster in the Audi, is alongside him on row 3. Then it's number 21, Andy Wilmot, number 70, Will Butler on the 4th row. 1, 2, 3, Isaac Smith makes his debut in the championship, former Fiesta champion, and he's got Jack Depper, who is now in his 3rd event with the championship, in the number 33, rounding out the top 10. Darryl Wilson is back in the green Vauxhall Astra. He's 11th, number 50. Then Tom Hibbert, who Paul said is making his debut. Ginetta ace, but not that familiar with front-wheel drive. And then in the back 2 rows of the grid, we've got our top 2 drivers in the championship. It's just such a topsy-turvy grid. Dan Kirby, number 4, 2nd place in the points, lines up 13th, with number 14, Danny Crivet alongside. 77, Mark Smith on the back row. And you have to go all the way back, Paul, to 16th place to find our championship leader, number 38, Lewis Kent. The points table and the points permutations that I'd worked out ahead of this event will mean absolutely nothing, I think, by the time we get to the end of this race, because the whole championship complexion has the potential to change.
Yeah, and like I say, it can all be mixed up in one corner. And, Alex Morgan not really competing in the championship. This is only his 2nd outing, who's in P2. So Bruce Winfield will have his work cut out. Alex is a very, very, very fast peddler from a lot of different championships around the UK and Europe. So, yeah, he's got a battle on, actually. But like you said, I think this could be really mixed up, and I just hope that we have a clean race. But I am a bit concerned about this crosswind that you can see from the MSV flags there on the start-finish straight, but also the temperature that it's not too cold, but it isn't warm, which we've been used to with these front-wheel drive cars, which can be a massive problem, obviously, with the cold rear tyres.
Here we go then, the final event of the season in the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy. and TCR UK. Bruce Winfield then is the sort of bronze, white and black car on the left-hand side of shot. On the outside, Alex Morgan, not a championship contender. He's just in this for a couple of race wins if he can get them, and really wants to try and escape the rest of the pack if he can. The red lights then are about to come on because the back of the grid is in position. I say in position, Jack Depper's not really in position, is he, in that yellow VW Golf? Hopefully that won't lead to a penalty for being out of position at the start. The red lights go on then. Let's get ready to go racing here for 20 minutes around the Donington Park National Circuit. The lights are out. Bruce Winfield is away well from pole position. Bradley Kent not so fast from third, and already Jack Constable's ahead of him. Max Hart moves up to challenge for fourth place and has got him by the time they get to turn one. Side by side for the lead though. Winfield on the inside, outside Alex Morgan. Bruce Winfield does not need to get involved in a battle here. He wants to try and escape if he can, but they are still, Paul, side by side towards the Craner curves.
Yeah, I think that's job done, Alex Morgan. He needs to say thank you to Bruce Winfield. Oh, I tell you what. Oh, we in P2 there, lost the lead, but then really did struggle to get the power down. He's going to lose another place now. As you can see, Constable's having a fight. Constable wants that place. He's moved up loads of places. He's going to be P2 around the outside. Bruce Winfield, not good for him.
No, because now he's got two of his title rivals right behind him. Third, fourth and fifth place in this race now are three of our title contenders. Dan Kirby, one of the others, was up the curb in the background trying to get past Hugo Cook. But look at that, Bruce Winfield being backed up into Max Hart, who is ahead of Bradley Kent. Not something I expected halfway round lap one.
No, me neither. You're going to see quite a bit of defending now as they come down to the chicane, but Alex Morgan on cold tyres got on with it. Look at that, already defending Bruce Winfield. He could have made this job a lot easier for himself, and that would have been to run Alex Morgan on the grass on the exit of Redgate. Lovely to see that he didn't. Massive respect, but he really didn't have any answer, did he, to that cold tyre nightmare down at Redgate. You've got a massive move on. Hart needed it done, gets it done. Winfield passed him, brilliant.
Max Hart into third place then. The pole sitter down to fourth, but Max Hart is on an absolute mission now. He's into the podium places, and I think he's got the pace to maybe go after Constable ahead. So it's Alex Morgan that leads, Constable second, Hart now third, Winfield fourth, Brad Kent is fifth. That's Andy Wilmot going with them in sixth, having a brilliant effort so far. What about the championship leader though? Lewis Kent from 16th on the grid is 12th already, so he is ahead of Tom Hibbert, Jack Depper, who had a poor start, Danny Crevet and Mark Smith, who's in the pit lane.
Yeah, jobs are good in there, isn't it? Bruce Winfield just trying to get himself settled down, but like I say, it was because he was too nice to Alex Morgan. Massive lock-up! Oh, he's going to end up in the gravel. Max Hart! What a disaster! Coppice at the top of the hill, locked up the front axle. I've not seen that for a long time. It looked like a mistake. The front axle locks up, game over for him. He's back down the order.
Yeah, he gets back on the track, but he's lost a lot of places. He's in that group now that has Lewis Kent a part of it. That could be fireworks on the way. Out of the chicane they come then. Morgan is checking out in the race lead. His gap at the end of lap number 2 is 2.4 seconds. Constable in second, Winfield third, Brad Kent fourth and Wilmot fifth. It's actually Will Butler into sixth. And Max Hart is in that next group with the likes of Dan Kirby and Lewis Kent, who picked up another place that lap into 11th position. That was really weird. It's rare that you see these cars look up like that. They've got ABS, which usually does a really good job, even in the early laps when everything's a little bit cold. That is not something we're used to seeing.
Very interesting that. The DSG car of Bruce Winfield has ABS. The other cars, the sequential cars, they don't have ABS. But still, that is an interesting point because you never see that with heat in the front tyres. I have never known a lock-up going into Coppice. It just looked like just too much brake pressure. Look at the dust being kicked up. They'll have to be careful of that because that can, one, destroy the tyres, but two, it can absolutely kill the track. And look at that, it's horrendous.
Yeah, Lewis Kent, though, goes, even despite the dirt on the track, there he is, look, ahead of the green Astra of Darrell Wilson. So that puts Kent into the top 10 now. You will score points pretty much wherever you finish in this race because the top 16 finishers score points. There are only 16 cars on the grid. So Lewis Kent is starting now to pick his way through. Looks as though, we haven't seen much of the car, but the fact he's making progress here, Paul, tells me that they've got a handle now on the handling of that Hyundai, which was not ideal in qualifying.
Yeah, not at all. Like we were speaking to him, he really didn't need that. Look at the big move there. Max Hart back up and gets another place. And I tell you what, Isaac Smith didn't see that coming, did he, in the 1-2-3?
That was a really good move. Max looks good on the brakes as well. That's the really strange thing. He's made a couple of nice moves now into Redgate Corner, so we'll have a word with him after the race and see what that issue was at Coppice. Now, Max has got speed here, but the trouble is he's now got a championship rival ahead of him and a championship rival with whom he's clashed already this year behind. Someone's been wide at the old hairpin. No sign of a car off the road. Oh, there it is. It was Will Butler. So Dan Kirby will go through. Can Max Hart follow him through into McLean's. Looks like he will. I don't think Butler's going to fight that one too hard. Or is he? They're still wheel-to-wheel off the turn, but Max Hart, I think, is going to go ahead here into what will be 7th position. And Will Butler returning to his rallying roots there with a big moment at the old hairpin.
Yeah, Max Hart has been given another chance in this title, hasn't he? Well, I mean, it looked like it was game over. Running through the gravel, look at that flash in the lights. Wants that next place off Dan Kirby for 7th, or it'll be for 6th, won't it? So, yeah, they really are cutting those chicanes. I know they've been warned, all the drivers have been warned about track limits, and that is anywhere really that's got green paint on, so your car should not be running over any curb or any back of curb with green paint. That's a move. Is it getting done, or was it Lewis Kent trying to get round the outside of Will Butler?
Yeah, it was. He's going to try and tee up the switchback, which he's done nicely, gets up the inside through Hollywood, and Isaac Smith will try and follow him. But look at the gap that Kirby and Hart now have been able to pull on Lewis Kent. That could be significant, because Lewis, remember, is the one that they're both trying to outscore. Remember, Kirby is 2nd in the points, Max Hart is 4th in the points, but those two are only 10 points apart themselves, so that is really where most of the attention's going to be in this race. But Max looks significantly quicker, doesn't he, than Dan Kirby. He's reeling in the blue and white Cupra already, and then nose to tail now heading towards Coppice.
Well, that's a nice little 4-car train there, isn't it, just behind that? Look, this circuit's getting really cut up. This dust is on every corner now, so the tyres will be getting choked up. The tyres will be being a real problem for these guys. Max Hart's starting to worry me now. I don't know whether he's trying to get in the mirrors of Dan Kirby, or he's actually weaving down the straight to get out of the dirty air of the car in front, which will be hotter and making his temperatures rise. So let's keep an eye on that. Max Hart stays in the slipstream of Dan Kirby down to Redgate. So the number 4 car seems all nice and steady in P6. Max Hart turns in a bit earlier, has more grip at the apex, has more grip on the exit. They look closer now as they come down through the crane of curves, and this is going to be really close. I think that you're going to see Max Hart apply pressure now that Dan Kirby is not going to be able to deal with.
Yeah, Max Hart wants to get on with this, of course, before Lewis Kent arrives on his tail. Look at the curb that Max Hart takes through the old hairpin, and you can see the effect that has on his exit speed. He's a couple of miles an hour faster off the corner, but has he got the speed up the hill? Remember, that Hyundai is carrying a lot of weight. It's the heaviest car on the grid as far as the championship ballast is concerned, and you could see there, despite coming off the corner significantly quicker than Kirby, he couldn't carry that up that hill towards McLean's.
Yeah, it was a real struggle. Anywhere where you need to be on throttle hard and go up a hill, that is where you're going to really struggle to get the power down and to make those tenths count. So a definite drop off of speed. Tell you what, Dan Kirby's done a good job to keep him behind for a whole lap, because he was so close. He's that close now. He's got to get an undercut at Redgate. He's got to make him defend now as they come down the pit straight. Either lunge him or make him defend so he can try and switch him back on the exit of Redgate, which he doesn't seem to be able to do.
No, he wasn't quite close enough. Needed another car length or so there, did the Irishman. These two, by the way, are about 5 or 6 tenths a lap quicker than Andy Wilmot ahead of them, so 5th place could be up for grabs for these two, and Lewis Kent in the background cannot go with them. In fact, he's being caught by Hugo Cook in the black and yellow Audi, so the points leader doesn't have the speed that these two have, but is Max Hart going to be able to make the move this time? Darryl Wilson slowing down there, going a lap down. I noticed he was slow a lap or two earlier, actually. There is the leader, Alex Morgan, 3.1 seconds to the good now. Jack Constable still 2nd. Jack Constable is 6th in the championship, but cannot win the title coming to this weekend, so he's just looking to end his season with some good results. Bruce Winfield in 3rd position, though. He is on course to move ahead of Max Hart, would you believe, for 4th in the championship as things stand, but that will change if Hart can get this move made on Kirby.
Wow, well, I thought the move was already done on Kirby because he was that close. We're just trying to wait and see them come across the line. It doesn't actually look like they've got it done at all, does it? No, they've gone through. Wilmot still 5th, Kirby still 6th, Max Hart still 7th. Wow, 3 tenths in it. You can see Hart just going out your picture there. He was in the 101, was nowhere. There's a big move on. Is that Crevet on Smith? Good job. Nicely down the inside. Done. Job's a good one.
Yeah, that was a really nice move there, made into Redgate corner. So Jack Depper still sort of familiarising himself in a way with TCR machinery. He really enjoyed his debut in the championship at Alton Park a couple of months ago. This is a very different kind of circuit, though, for the VW Racing Cup front runner. Danny Crevet's car Oh, he's sideways at the old hairpin. Is he going to save it? I was about to say there are bits hanging off it. Well, they're not anymore because they all fell off as he went sideways through the grass. That car has had a hard weekend so far. It's more tank tape, I think, than bodywork, and he did a really good job of saving that slide.
Yeah, very fortunate there, wasn't he? I mean, just keep the throttle wide open. Talking about throttle wide open, you can see Jack Depper is just trying to fend off Smith, and that is a very, very difficult thing to do. Isaac Smith, very, very fast in his own right, this boy.
As things stand, by the way, we would go into race 2 with still 5 of them that could mathematically win the championship, because Bruce Winfield, the one furthest back in the points, is the one scoring the most points of those title rivals. There is the battle, look, just up the road between Lewis Kent and Hugo Cook. So there is a chance here, isn't there, that Lewis could end up dropping even more points, because Hugo Cook, running in that 9th position, looks a little bit faster right now. If Lewis were to drop that extra place, it would cost him 1 more championship point. Jack Depper a little too wide there out of the first corner. So down the hill they go then. Morgan with a 3-second lead now. It's going down slightly. Jack Constable's been a little bit quicker than the leader over the last couple of laps. Winfield is 1.8 behind him and is still not quite given up on getting back into second place. Things, though, are just starting, dare I say it, to slow down a bit as we move into the second half of the race.
Yeah, there'll be a few reasons for that. One will be obviously tyre wear. Dan Kirby is around, so that means that Max Hart has got in front.
Yes, he has.
He's miles in front, and Wilmot is not far ahead of him.
I think he can catch Wilmot, absolutely. I heard a screech of tyres going into Redgate at about the time Hart and Kirby would have been going through there, so I think Dan had a moment, whether it was self-induced or whether Max gave him a little assist, I don't know. I can't see any damage on either car, so I suspect it was a mistake from Kirby. And Max Hart now has been released. He is only 1.4 seconds behind Andy Wilmot, and that would be for 5th position. And crucially for Hart, Kirby only lost the 1 place. He hasn't fallen behind Lewis as well, so that was a perfect scenario for Max. He didn't have to force the issue. He didn't get delayed by battling against Dan Kirby, and Lewis still is not gaining any extra places himself.
Yeah, I mean, with 8 minutes to go, you've got to say that Lewis Kent will keep going forward, but I don't know how much he can take out of the people in front of him. So Lewis needing to score a few more points to make this a bit more less difficult than it already is. So Dan Kirby's only 1.3 seconds ahead of him after the start-finish line. Max Hart will try and get onto the back of Wilmot. He should pass him, but then you've got Bradley Kent and Bruce Winfield, who will be kicking himself after that big slide that he had down the Craners.
We said at Brands Hatch, I think, didn't we, that Bruce Winfield's one weakness was his pace on cold tyres, and I think that really is what cost him, because now the race has settled down, he's every bit as quick as the 2 ahead of him, but he's nearly 5 seconds behind the leaders, so that maybe next year is something that Bruce will look to work on. No change at the head of the order. The only change actually is that Jack Constable has just set the fastest lap. That's worth an extra championship point, so not too significant for Jack's championship tally, but it does mean he's taking that extra point away from our top 5 in the points. And now at this stage of the race, Paul, unlikely that we're going to see that lap time improved upon. Yeah,
it looks a bit status quo, and I don't know if Max Hart is going to be consistently fast, but I've got to say, Wilmot is driving a stormer as he locks a rear right. Beautiful stuff from the car in blue. I mean, yeah, I think he's really struggling, isn't he? Look at Max Hart, cannot take massive chunks out of him like he did to Dan Kirby.
And for Max, that weight, it's going to affect his pace on every lap, but the deeper into the race we get and the more those tyres wear, the harder it gets to carry the weight. So is he now going to start stalling out a bit, do you think? He was still 2/10 faster than Wilmot on the previous lap, but that's not really enough, is it?
Well, it really isn't enough. He needs to be, getting them lights flashed and making sure that Wilmot knows he's coming, so he can then have a bit of a nightmare looking in his mirror.
Yeah, speaking of which, if Max Hart were to look in his mirror, he would just about be able to see that Dan Kirby is now being caught quite quickly by Lewis Kent. So Lewis Kent in 8th position, number 38, is almost within striking distance of Dan, who has been fighting a misfire, hasn't he, Dan Kirby, actually, in the blue and white number 4 Cupra, and they weren't entirely sure that they'd got it fixed before this race. So that perhaps explains why his pace is fluctuating a little bit. Wilmot then does a 1 minute 12.0, so again Hart takes 2/10 out of him. The gap is down under a second now, and I guess the closer that Hart can get to Wilmot, the more pressure that starts to apply to the man in blue ahead of him. But Andy's a pretty level-headed guy, really, isn't he? He's not going to succumb to the pressure too easily.
No, not at all. As I say, I wasn't being disrespectful when I was saying, I expect Hart to catch him quicker. It's just that Andy hasn't driven that much in this championship. He's hitting every apex, he's driving beautifully, and he seems to be getting the job done, doesn't he?
Max Hart is now. He's obviously listening to you. He's got the commentary playing on the radio, I think, because he's flashing his lights now at Andy Wilmot ahead. Continuing serenely on his way, here's our race leader, Alex Morgan, who is making his way. No, that's not Alex Morgan. That is the other Cooper of Mark Smith. Then I thought that was going a bit slow into the chicane, and he has been in the pit lane for a number of laps. He's just rejoined the circuit, I think, after some issues at the start of the race. Across the line we go then. What's this gap between Wilmot and Hart? He's now down to 6/10. So a 5-second penalty for Will Butler for track limits, I presume. We saw one of those track limits indiscretions at the old hairpin. The point I was about to make, Max Hart is now getting towards striking distance, and there are still 5 minutes to go, Paul.
There is, and the problem you're going to have is Mr. Smith in front of you, holding you up at the apex. Oh, he could get... Oh, brilliant stuff from Smith, getting right out the way. That was exceptional driving. Even in GT3 cars yesterday at Brands Hatch, I've seen a massive collision caused by a backmarker not knowing what he was doing. So, great stuff by Mark Smith, who'd had a nightmare in the pits. But I've got to say, this is where Wilmot's strong. It's anywhere uphill and anywhere on big traction.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where Hart is struggling, isn't he? Carrying that extra ballast that we've mentioned. So out of Coppice they go. First sector times for Wilmot and Hart. Hart was a 10th faster, but in that middle sector where you're climbing uphill out of the old hairpin, he's going to lose out by a couple of tenths. So Wilmot faster so far on this lap. Again, they use a liberal amount of the track, the grass really, on the inside of the track there through the chicane. This is a strange one, isn't it? Because Lewis Kent, I thought, was going to be able to close in on Dan Kirby a bit more than he has done. Is this misfire for Kirby maybe a bit intermittent, do you think? Is it slowing him down more on some laps than others?
Yeah, I would say so. And also, I did tell him to try and change the steering wheel, because I've had a problem in a TCR car with a client of mine. So we changed the steering wheel, and that seemed to do it, because it can sometimes be the actual, the quick shift or the paddle shift on the back of the car. If it's got a loose connection, it can be anything electrical. It's your worst nightmare. But he's looking good. I've got to say, Dan Kirby doing a cracking job. It looks like he's actually pulling a gap on him here, but a gap that isn't being pulled is Wilmot. And this is where he's a bit quicker, because he's uphill and not having to lug massive weight around. Max Hart is as close as he's ever been. He needs to pass Wilmot, and that is not going to be easy.
Yeah, this is for 5th place on the track. Something that we must also remember here, though, is that Alex Morgan, the race leader, is not a full championship regular, so doesn't score points, which means at the moment the 25 points would go to Jack Constable. Bruce Winfield in 3rd scores 2nd place points. That's something else to factor into these very complicated championship permutations, but again, we'll get into that in more detail at the end of the race, which is disappointingly only 3 minutes away. Disappointing for me because I'm enjoying the race, disappointing for Max Hart because he's running out of options here to pass Wilmot.
Yeah, I've noticed he's stopped flashing now down the pit straight, and I didn't mean that like a weirdo that was at Wembley with nothing on, but yeah, flashing his headlight, actually sounds even worse. Anyway, so yeah, he's just
Should we move on?
Yeah, he's just not flashing his lights anyway. But yeah, as we see Jack Depper go through the pitch, I can't believe how much dust is on the circuit. These tyres, you know, work hard enough as it is, to be fair, and it now looks like they're working even harder with all the dust that's being brought on the track, because I've not seen cars you know, cut the corners as much as I've seen these front-wheel drive tin-top cars do in any other championship. So yeah, they're having a real struggle, these tyres, but as usual, Goodyear producing a fantastic tyre and getting the job done.
Also getting the job done is Jack Constable, who on the previous lap was 9 tenths faster than the race leader. He's only a second behind Morgan now with 2 laps to go. Here they are, look, on screen. So Alex Morgan leading the way, but Jack Constable sees a chance to get another race victory, doesn't he?
He does, doesn't he? And that definitely is Alex Morgan, isn't it? Because I've just noticed he's not using the exit of Redgate, which is... You just don't do it. Now it looks like the car is going as fast as it can, but he wasn't using the exit of Redgate, which that then shown that, you know, Constable was catching massively, but it looks like he's picked up the pace. Maybe he was managing it, but I'll tell you what, he might have managed it a bit too close to the bone. Actually, he gets caught again, and who's that going slow?
Butler, I think.
Butler again. Oh yeah, number 70. Yeah. So Butler going slow, but that was a nice little out the way job. He didn't really cause any problems there.
as usual in these races, it's a job to know where to look, because as well as the lead battle behind for the championship, Winfield and Brad Kent are very close together for third place. There is a problem though for Alex Morgan. The car is slow in a straight line, and Jack Constable moves up to challenge for the race lead around the outside into the chicane. But Constable goes out wide. If this ends in tears, it's Winfield and Brad Kent that could benefit. Look at the way that they're catching, and what is going on with Alex Morgan's car? It's suddenly slowed down the straight, and now Constable's slow.
Yeah, Constable's just got a terrible run. He's going to come through, is he? No, Winfield trying to brake and get on the back of him. Massive oversteer. Something's not right. Something's not right with Constable's car. He's got to get down the inside. This will not be nice if they go side by side down the cranes, which they don't. But now it's given Alex Morgan, who's got an intermittent problem, a run at the checkered flag. Unbelievable. But that's going to bring Kent into it as well if Constable's got a problem in P2.
And remember, this is for second on the road, but it's for first place points. How valuable could those 25 points be for Bruce Winfield? He gets 22 if he stays where he is, 25 if he can pass the number 11 car ahead of him. Into McLean's they go for the final time in the race, and Winfield is throwing everything at this right over the curb. A bit too wide there though. He lost a bit of speed on the exit, and now there's only one more overtaking opportunity to go, and that is down into the chicane. Now, can Alex Morgan get to the flag without slowing again? That's the other question. A really good run from Winfield. He's up the inside of Jack Constable for second place. They're wheel to wheel, and Bruce Winfield has done it. He's into P2, and if he holds it on the exit, that's 25 valuable championship points. Alex Morgan will survive against the odds to take the race victory, but for the championship, Bruce Winfield comes second, Jack Constable third, and Bradley Kent in fourth place. Now, what about Hart? Hart is ahead of Wilmot. Max Hart has passed Andy Wilmot whilst that was going on, and that means that he's in fifth place. Here they come. Max Hart out of the chicane, still ahead of Wilmot. There was a bit of darting going towards the line. Wait for it to be confirmed. Yes, Hart is fifth, Wilmot sixth, Kirby seventh, Lewis Kent eighth. What a race. That came out of absolutely nowhere in the last two laps, and Bruce Winfield with the drive of the season there to capitalise on the issues for those ahead and sneak through into second place. What a race.
Wow, that's unbelievable. The first lap was immense, the middle part was a bit steady, but those last couple of laps, Alex Morgan with a problem, and then all of a sudden Constable looked like he had a problem. I don't think it was anything technical. I think he ran through the gravel, Jack Constable, had loads of rubbish on his rear left tyre, couldn't get turned in for the first corner, lost the run, but then lost momentum as Bruce Winfield, who's been strong in qualifying through the second to last corner, got the run, and that was an amazing move to get that done, get back across and on the brakes for the chicane. Unreal. I can't wait to interview these guys.
That is a good point. You best go down there to talk to the race winner then, who is going to be Alex Morgan. I can't wait to find out what the issue was with that car. That was really bizarre. Just no idea why the car started to slow when it did. I'm just very quickly trying to work out what this all means for the championship, because it's going to be 25 points then for Winfield, as we've said, because Morgan wins the race but doesn't score points as he is not a full season entry. So Winfield in second place on the road. It will stay second place. Morgan still gets the winner's trophy, but the winner's points go to Winfield. So Winfield gets 25. Max Hart, who finished fourth on the road, gets third place points. So that is sorry, no, he didn't finish fifth on the road, gets fourth place points, which is 18. We're going to give 20 points to Bradley Kent, 14 to Dan Kirby, and 12 to Lewis Kent, which means provisionally that Lewis Kent now has just a 19-point advantage over Dan Kirby. No, it won't be Kirby. It will be Bradley Kent who moves into second place in the championship. 212 for Lewis Kent, 196 for Bradley, 193 for Dan Kirby, and 187 apiece for Max Hart and Bruce Winfield, and all five of them could still win the championship going into the two races later on this afternoon. That was epic. Well, I need to lie down after that. Alex Morgan looks a lot calmer than either me or Paul did for most of that race, I must say. A little relieved, though, I'd have thought, Alex Morgan, to have survived whatever the issue was. And Paul O'Neill's already made it there in time to give him his winner's Goodyear cap. Let's get the thoughts, then, of the race winner, Alex Morgan, who survives a frenetic race, Paul, to get a race victory here at Donington.
Whoa, how did he do that? That is unbelievable. Alex Morgan, you've just shouted something about, I didn't have any fuel, mate.
Yeah, I had a low pressure warning come up about 6 or 7 laps before the end. It started off quite small coming through McLean's, and then by the last 2 laps it was just a complete cutout, and I could just see Jack getting closer and closer, and I was just thinking how many more minutes are left in this race. But I was really given a lifeline. I don't know what happened in the last chicane, the lap before the last one, and I looked at my mirrors and Jack was going through the gravel, and that bought me about a second or two. But the last lap onto the straight from Coppice, I had no power for about 2 seconds, so fortunate to have come home with a win. I thought this is just too cruel to miss out here.
Unbelievable, mate. We were in comms and we were saying, what is he doing? Is he managing the gap? And I said to NWQ in comms, I went, if he's managing that gap, mate, he's obviously bored at life because he's closed that up too much.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't saving my tyres for race 2 there. I was giving it everything, trying to make up elsewhere for the lack of power through the 2 right-handers there at the end, up the hill bit. So I just so pleased to have come home with the win there. I thought it was going away from me. I was saying on the radio to Kevin, I was like, this is just too cruel.
Tell me about the first lap, mate, because difficult one for Bruce Winfield, got a slide on. Did you sense that could happen, and is that why you pounced so quickly on it?
I think my plan the whole way through was to, if I got a better launch and I was going to be in front, I was going to pull to the inside. And then I could see he got as good as a launch as I did, so I thought I'm going to go for a quali break into the first corner and just hang it around the outside as far as I can, because I thought if I've got the inside for the left at the bottom of Craners, I'm pretty sorted there, because I know it's really sketchy on the outside and I wouldn't be going round somebody's outside there. So as I kind of hit the bottom bit and came through, I looked at my mirrors and I could see him sideways, and I thought, oh gosh, I hope he doesn't collect anybody else. So I think once I got out of turn 1, I knew then I had it. So I was just going to get into quali mode there and just do lap after lap. And all was cool until about 6 laps before the end. So that's what happens in racing though. But anyway, I'm delighted to have got that win. And now I think we just need to put more fuel in next time and maybe take some extra weight out.
So weight out, don't want any fuel pressure problems. Did you get a fuel pressure on the dashboard? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and at first it was just a little misfire, and then every lap it got a bit worse to the point then it was just full cutout. So I was trying really odd lines there to just keep it as straight as possible and not run as much curb, but we did just enough, so really happy.
Well, we were thinking you were a bit weird, mate, so I'm glad you've cleared all that up, fella. But great stuff. Well done, Alex Morgan. Race 1 winner. Back to you, Andy McEwen.
Right, I think I've caught my breath, just enough to remind you of what the result was then. Alex Morgan gets the win, Bruce Winfield second, Jack Constable on the podium in third, with Bradley Kent in fourth place. Max Hart recovered nicely there to fifth, but will be kicking himself for that mistake at the start. He could have won that race otherwise. Andy Wilmot was sixth ahead of Dan Kirby and Lewis Kent, top 2 in the championship going into that race, both struggling for pace a little bit. Hugo Cook was ninth, Danny Crevet rounds out the top 10, then it was Isaac Smith and Tom Hibbert, Jack Depper and Will Butler who had that off, whilst Mark Smith spent most of the first part of the race in the pit lane, and Darrell Wilson spent most of the second half of it in exactly the same place. So provisionally, and we will get this all double-checked and confirmed before race number 2 a little bit later on this afternoon, Lewis Kent moves on to 212 points. That puts him 16 points ahead of Bradley Kent in second, who is 3 points ahead of Dan Kirby in third, who is 6 points ahead of Max Hart and Bruce Winfield, who are joint fourth in the points, which means the top 5 drivers with 52 points still available today are covered by just 25 points. I told you it was going to be a really, really good day of racing. The second Goodyear Touring Car Trophy race of the weekend then will be out in about an hour and a half's time, all things being well. We will see you again then.